example 20 tells us to find all of the angles between 0 degrees and 360 degrees which satisfy the equations. Um, this is this is a one where we're solving for angles. What angles make these equations true? So this is where we got to bring our knowledge about the unit circle and solving equations together. The big piece of information that they give us is that they're giving us a restricted place to answer. Now remember, trig functions go on forever, so certain values would have an infinite number of possibilities, but we're only looking for ones that are on the unit circle. So not only are we going to have to know our equations, but we're going to have to know how the unit circle works in order to get this answer correct. So if we look at the first problem, A, we have 4 sine of x equals 3. So we want to solve for x, but x is contained around sine. So what we're going to do is we are going to solve for sine first. So since we have 4 sine, we're going to divide each side by 4, and we're going to get the sine of x equals 3/4. Now, that is not on the unit circle for us, so what we need to do is we need to use our arcsine feature. So arcsine, and you can kind of imagine it like this. We're doing the arcsine of sine, and that's going to give us x. So it like arcsine undoes sine, and then on the other side we're doing the arcsine of 3/4. So you can skip straight to that, but I'm just explaining the logic of how this is going to work. So x is going to be the arcsine of 3/4. So at least at first. So we got to do a little bit more work then that I'll show you. So if we go to our calculator, so the arcsine here of 3/4, and this is in degree mode, by the way, is 48.59 degrees. So it's going to give us 48.59 degrees. Now, that's not all of the answers. As we know, sine it's going to be 3/4 in another place as well. So think about the unit circle. So the sine being 3/4, so we got 1, 2, 3, roughly there. So we've got, this is 48 degrees roughly, but there's another place over here. Now we got to think about the unit circle. Think about where would that be? This point is 48.59 that way. This one is 48.59 that way, right? Symmetrically. So our other answer is going to be 180 minus 48.59 degrees. So we can figure that that's going to be 131.41. Right? So those are the two answers. Those are the only two ones that are going to have that value in this particular window. So it's really important to pay attention to that window. So the second one says 6 sine of x plus 5 equals 0. So if we go and say, okay, well, 6 sine of x plus 5 equals 0. Well, so we're going to do the same thing, right? We're trying to solve for x, so we're going to want to try to isolate sine of x first. Now, in order to do that, we have to move the positive 5 over first, or we could move the 6 sine of x too. But I'm going to move this over. I'm going to get 6 sine of x equals negative 5. I'm then going to divide each side by 6, and I'm going to get the sine of x equals negative 5/6. So what we want to know is, where does this happen? So if we think about a unit circle, negative 5/6 is really close to 1. So we're expecting probably answers that are down here. Okay? So again, logically, it's going to give us one of these, and we're going to have to convert it. Remember, because we have to answer between 0 and 360. So this is going to take some thinking on our part. Now, if we go to our calculator, we look and we see that the inverse sine of, the inverse sine of negative 5 over 6 gives us negative 56 degrees. So negative 56.44. So if x is negative 56.44 degrees to start, that does not work with this at all, right? So we've got to do some thinking. So this is, it thinks that we're talking about negative 56.44 degrees. So how do we figure out what it would be in if it was between 0 and 360. So one thing that we can do is we can add 360 to this. That will give us an answer in this range. So if we added 360, so x is really going to be negative 56.44 plus 360. Now that gives us, let's see, what is that? 303.56. Okay, so that's one. Now we need to know the other one. So what we can figure out for that is, because it's that same distance, it's negative 56.44. We know that. We can go up 56.44 from 180. So it's also going to equal 180 plus 56.44, which is going to be 236.44 degrees. So even though like the arc sine is really helpful because we can find the angles, but because of the limited window that they answer in, we got to do some thinking on how we're going to answer these questions. So not only do you have to solve, but you have to use what you know about the unit circle to help figure out anywhere else where it could be happening. But generally expect for each rotation, you're going to have at least two answers. Sometimes it could be one if it was a min or max, but you can expect two answers most of the time.